Chapter 4. Our factory blown up. My most exciting experience was to see our munition factory blown into the sky. I had a narrow escape, where I was within 50 yards of the door. My partner, Paddy Kyo, had an even more wonderful escape, as he was actually on the premises when the explosion occurred. We never knew what brought about the havoc. I had gone out to a well to fetch a can of water, for necessity compelled us to do all our own cooking and cleaning. As I was returning to the cottage, I saw the roof leaving it. Simultaneously came the roar of the bursting grenades. In a moment the house was in flames. It was a desperate situation. My one thought was to save my comrade, if indeed he was not already beyond human aid. I dropped a can of water and rushed to the house. I dashed up the stairs and found Paddy lying in the room, either dead or unconscious. I raised him in my arms and carried him with a heavy heart through the rain of shrapnel, down the stairs, the house, and away to the banks of the Multeen, a little stream not far away from the house. My heart was wrung with an anguish as I laid him by the stream and rushed for my can to throw some of the fresh, clean water over his pale countenance. Before I had time to try the effects of a second supply, Paddy was on his feet and rushing for me, very much alive. "You damn fool! Do you want to drown me?" he shouted. And then he added a lot more that I prefer not to repeat. The destruction of our house was a heavy blow, and for a while we mourned the loss of our little factory and its contents. My little capital was gone now, and the O'Dwyers had to be compensated for the loss of their home. I thought out my plans and gathered together all the tradesmen in our little army and put them to work. In a few days the cottage was repaired, looked none the worse. By the way, the blackened hands at a later stage wreaked vengeance on it more effectively than the explosion of the grenades. O'Dwyer's house was now out of bounds for my work, but in a very short time I got another house from a good typical Tipperary man, Ger O'Connor. Here I was more successful because I took greater precautions with my work. I guarded against another explosion, but other circumstances compelled us to evacuate it within a few months. During our stay in this house, our condition was far from happy. Of bodily comforts we had none. We had neither bed nor bedding covers, and worse still, we had no money wherewith to buy them. We got a loan of a couple of blankets from neighbours. We commandeered some straw from the nearest farmer. First, we spread out the straw on the ground and covered it with one blanket. We then spread over a lot of old newspapers, which we carefully collected every day, and over these we placed our second blanket. The paper was excellent for keeping us warm, and by not turning out of one position, we usually got about 3 hours sleep. As soon as we moved, the paper tore, and the cold quickly worked its way through. Still greater discomfort than our bed was caused by the presence of mice. The little beggars were very numerous and very daring. Many a night we were awakened by their nibbling at our hair. Whenever I protested, in action as well as in words, Sean Tracy would plead, the poor little creatures. They might as well be happy when we can't. Don't be vexed with them, Dan, even if they take a little bit of your black hair." He argued that it was enough to have the peelers after us, and that if the mice had any decency, they ought to leave us alone. For some of the time, things went on smoothly, and our work progressed pleasantly. Then my partner, Kyo, left me, and I was joined by Sean Hogan, whose life for the next 5 years was to be very closely linked with mine. The two Seans and myself seemed to have but one mind. I have never had any difference with Hogan up to the present day, and never had an angry word with my dear old comrade Sean Tracy up to the day of his death. It was during our sojourn in O'Connell's house that we were joined by Seamus Robinson, later elected deputy for East Tipperary and Waterford. Robinson, who had lived a good part of his life in Glasgow, once became a fast friend. The four of us, Tracy, Hogan, Robinson, and I, seemed perfectly balanced in temperament, age, outlook, and hopes. Many an ambitious plan we made, and many a dream we dreamed of the free Ireland for which alone we now lived and worked. After a few months, Ger O'Connell gave us notice to quit. We had no tenants' rights, no protecting Act of Parliament, no alternative but to depart. Being on the run, we dare not go looking for lodgings in the ordinary way, even if we had money to pay. The peelers knew every hole and corner in the district, and were ever on the prowl for Irishmen known to have little love for English rule. But good luck came to our rescue. Sean Hogan's had a little dairy or outhouse, which they generally placed at our disposal. Here we enjoyed the luxury of bed, clothing, and other little comforts, but our meals were few and far between. I myself lived for about 2 weeks in the dairy on rice boiled in water without either sugar or milk. Abstemious life was not new to me. For months while I was organising, I used to fast from breakfast to breakfast, and many a night I walked 20 miles for a bed, or even a shakedown. The dairy did not escape the attention of the enemy, who subsequently gave it the name the Tin House. We were terribly handicapped for want of money, not indeed for personal comforts, which seldom troubled us, but to get around. On one occasion, Sean Tracy and I cycled to Dublin to get some arms. We had no money for train fares, and it was essential that we should reach Dublin by 6 o'clock on a particular Monday evening. There was a Brigade Council meeting fixed for Sunday night, which we were bound to attend. That meant we could not leave Tipperary till about 8 o'clock on Monday morning. We covered the 110 miles and we reached Dublin in good time. Of course, we were very hungry, but once we reached the house of our good friend Phil Shanahan, himself a Tipperary man, and later a Republican deputy for Dublin, all our troubles disappeared. Then and after, we never wanted for anything while Phil was about. We had to remain in Dublin until the following Saturday before we could conclude our business. Here another difficulty arose. We were due back in Tipperary at an officers' meeting the same Saturday at 6 p.m. We left Phil Shanahan's house at 8:30 in the morning. We carried 6 revolvers, 500 rounds of .303 rifle ammunition, and half a dozen grenades, and we were the only 2 who were punctual at the meeting.